all men are created equal, but some are more equal than others, because only some deserve life, only some deserve justice, and only some deserve your tears.
They're destroying critical infrastructure, which provides millions of people across Ukraine with drinking water, gas to keep them from freezing to death, and electricity. Civilian buses, cars, even ambulances have been shelled.
We can never let the crimes Russia's committing become our new normal. Bombing schools and hospitals and apartment buildings to rubble is not normal.
We stand strongly for the proposition that Israel has not only the right but the obligation to defend itself and to do everything possible to make sure that this October 7th can never happen again.
It's hard to look at what he's doing in Ukraine, what his forces are doing in Ukraine, and think that any ethical, moral individual could justify that. This is war. It is combat. It is bloody. It is ugly, and it's going to be messy. And innocent civilians are going to be hurt. We're not going to react in near real time to every event. Israel has a right and a responsibility to defend itself, and we're going to make sure they have the tools and capabilities to do that.
The death toll in Gaza rose. 1,000, 5,000, 10,000, 15,000. Every day, the death toll rose. But it was never quite high enough to move Kirby and co. to tears. The thousands of orphans, the carpet-bombed homes, the scarring tales of the unfolding horrors.
Gaza is becoming a graveyard for children.
We cannot see more children with the wounds of war, with the burns, with the shrapnel littering their body, with the broken bones. Inaction by those with influence is allowing the killing of children. This is a war on children.
How do you assess what's happening right now in terms of humanitarian needs in Gaza?
The worst ever, Christiane, and I don't say that lightly. I mean, I started off in my 20s dealing with the Khmer Rouge, and you remember how bad that was, the killing fields and so forth. But 68% of the people killed in Gaza are women and children. They stopped counting the numbers of children killed after 4,500 had been counted.
That just didn't quite do it for those self-appointed champions of human rights in London, Washington, Brussels. Dry eyes all round. Then a moment came when the piles of bodies just grew too high to be ignored, and the goalposts changed. It turns out the dead are ranked according to who, how, when, and why.
Unlike Russia and Ukraine, and unlike what Hamas did on the 7th of October, the killing of civilians is not a war aim of Israel. I'm not denying that it's happening. Now, of course it is, and it's tragic. But it's not the goal of Israeli forces to go out and deliberately take innocent civilian life. And they have tried to make efforts to minimize that.
Well, someone get the Israelis some target practice, please. Because by the UN's own admission, civilian casualties in Ukraine, after almost 2 years of war, and despite President Putin apparently aiming at innocents, are lower than what Tel Aviv managed to achieve by mistake in just a few weeks. But then again, who can trust any of these numbers anyway?
They say to me is I have no notion that the Palestinians are telling the truth about how many people are killed. I'm sure innocents have been killed, and it's the price of waging a war. I think we should be incredibly careful. I think not we, the Israelis should be incredibly careful to be sure that they're focusing on going after the folks that are propagating this war against Israel. And it's against their interests when that doesn't happen. But I have no confidence in the number that the Palestinians are using.
So it wasn't enough that Gazans were stripped of dignity in life, caged in a sliver of land just 25 miles long and 5 miles wide. They were then even stripped of the dignity to die. The callous second-ratedness with which Western politicians have, by and large, treated the Palestinians is now undeniable. Remember Ursula von der Leyen preaching about the crime of targeting civilian infrastructure?
Targeted attacks on civilian infrastructure with a clear aim to cut off men, women, children of water, electricity and heating with the winter coming, these are acts of pure terror. And we have to call it as such. This is a moment to stay the course, and we will back Ukraine for as long as it takes.
Turns out that only applies in Ukraine. Gazans can be starved, denied water, electricity, medicine.
We're imposing a complete siege in Gaza. There will be no electricity, no food, no water, no fuel. Everything will be closed. We're fighting against human animals and we're acting accordingly.
And all Ursula will do is preach Israel's right to self-defense. Remember the doors Europe opened to Ukrainian refugees? Free housing, free transport, free healthcare, free schooling, free clothing. But for Gazans, nothing but closed borders. With only the clothes on their back, the 2 million displaced could do nothing but inch further south along the Gaza Strip as the bombs dropped closer and closer. Remember the flood of politicians to Kiev with their tearful faces and